This journey in 52 Weeks of Why has been such an adventure for me to learn from friends and neighbors and from people who have influenced my life by either their words or their actions or their writings. And today I have somebody whose writings, when I became a father and was diving back into being a better person, there were a few key authors that helped me get back into the habit of reading and have a daily routine of reading. And my guest today is one of those authors that had a book that I couldn't put down. And if you remember when we were younger, those books you can't put down, every time you walk away from them, you want to come back. And you're going through your day wondering what's going to happen next. And this is my guest today. But before we get into that, I want to share a very simple, easy one-line quote today. This is actually one that I discovered or stumbled upon in a conversation with a friend one day. And it's very simple. It says, "You cannot demand the fruit before the seed is even planted." And I think we have this tendency in today's world to think that the fruit just happens in life without understanding the necessity of having the seed and the faith that it takes to take a seed and plant it and understand that we're not responsible for the growth of that seed. We don't have to go back and understand the minutia of how that seed grows. We just have to water it and take care of it and weed around it. And before you know it, you're in a position where you have the fruit. But the fruit won't happen without the seed. The seed is such a critical component of that. So my guest today is a New York Times bestselling author, Andy Andrews. Andy's book, The Noticer, for me was one that I talked about just a minute ago, that got me back into this fervor for reading a good book. And he's got multiple books. I think he has over, Andy, correct me if I'm right, do you have over 20 books now, 21 books?
The one that I just turned in that'll be coming out in September is number 26. So
number 26. So I have a...
Normally I would say I have no idea, but we had to do a fill out a thing the other day. It was like an interview question and answer thing, and they asked how many books. And so, you can't go, I don't know. So it's like, all right, well, let's count them, so we did. So now I actually know, but I'm still probably going to be telling people I don't know. But you,
no,
26.
I love that answer. That's the humility that's so presented in the books that you write, right? That the characters in there embody some of this humility that you have. So the ones I have dove into and had such great experience reading are The Noticer, The Traveler's Gift, and there was one more. Andy, help me out here. The Noticer Returns. I apologize. The Noticer Returns, the second version of the
Dude,
Noticer.
I'm just ecstatic that you got the names of the books right.
Nice
it's
job,
hilarious. It's hilarious to me. People will come up to me and they go, "Oh man, your book, The Traveler's Guide. Oh, it was great." And that book, The Watcher about the old man. And that one, The Lost Coin. I love The Lost Coin and The Heart Monitor. I mean, it's like, I can't get any of them right. So I'm shocked that you got them right. I'm just happy you got them right.
So the cool part is that I have a second grader and a kindergartner and a 3-year-old, and they all appreciate the message in The Boy Who Changed the World. And I'm appreciative that you have a book that's angled towards their age, because there's not a lot of books that have that heavy moral value to them. And The Boy Who Changed the World, we finished that, and my 8-year-old especially is always so impacted by it, because it has such a strong message that talks about how they have within them that power, right? They have within them every day the ability to make changes. Andy, tell me, I know you are.
You know what? I am glad you said something about that book. Today, I was supposed to be at a school reading that book to elementary kids, right? And because obviously because of what's going on, I can't. And so we thought, well, why don't we video it and send it to the school? And then we thought, well, if we're going to video it, why don't we let everybody see it? So I'm going to, after I get off with you, we're going to video that. And in the next day or so, that will be put up on my YouTube channel. And I thought, if we're going to do this during this time, we're all trying to find ways to be valuable to other people. And so I'm gonna read some stuff. I'll read the other children's book, and I'm gonna read some of my books and some of the stuff that's not been published yet. But we'll post it on the YouTube channel. So just go to Andy Andrews on YouTube and press that subscribe button, and they'll come right to you.
I think that's so valuable because some of my favorite musicians right now are doing the same thing. Right, they are at home and they're getting on their guitar or their piano, and they're just playing music live for anyone who wants to listen. And I think it'd be even more cool to hear you and some of my other favorite authors take the time to read to us, because there's nothing quite like hearing you in the Audible book for the Noticer. And my wife did the same thing. I read it first, and then I doubled back and heard you read it. And not only do you get more when you read a book the second time, but hearing you do Jonesy's voice, just as an example, right? There's something there that adds that extra layer to whether you read, when you're reading to yourself in your mind, reading a book, whether you articulate everybody's voices with a particular tone. I don't know that people do or do not, but if you don't, hearing somebody do that makes the messages so much more profound.
Thank you.
Are you, all right, so I know that you are a husband and I know that you are a father. I did not ask you, forgive me, but I'll ask you now, how long have you and your wife been married, please?
31 years. 31.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah. And your son, I believe is, well, tell me both of the ages of your kids, because I had the privilege of meeting your son last year.
Yeah, I've got Austin is 20 now, and Austin owns a couple of businesses. The one he's really focused on now is AustinLegacyKnives.com, and he builds knives one of one. They're marked one of one, and just does an amazing job. And then Adam is 17, and he and a buddy have a business called Gulf Coast Nation. And if you look at Gulf Coast Nation on YouTube, you'll be shocked because they fish people from the beach, and their marketing idea is you go fishing with us, you don't get seasick, and we can order pizza and have it delivered, or we can cook you a steak. But they catch and release, they tag and release big sharks, and you go on that YouTube channel and see it's unbelievable. I mean, the biggest one they've landed was 12 feet 3 inches, over 1,000 pounds, a tiger shark.
Wow! And
I
had
one night last summer they landed 6 tiger sharks in one night. So it was unbelievable.
The fun of, I mean, if you've never caught a shark, the fun of catching one is pretty amazing. And I remember when I was a kid, we lived in the Bahamas, and I've shared this on prior episodes, on a little 2.5 mile island called Deepwater Key. And my parents ran a fishing resort there when I was 12 all the way until I was 20. And I lived there when I was 12 on this little 2.5 mile island. Yeah, Mom and Dad retired from the Bahamas back to Ohio, where I am right now.
Wow. I mean, most people go from Ohio to the Bahamas. You would.
Yeah. That's another story. That's for another podcast, my friend. But one night, I remember I was 12. We caught a shark off the dock. And we would just have a giant piece of rope strapped to one of those poles that is the dock, and they are buried numbers of feet deep. So a shark, when they would catch it, they would try to run, and they literally would just hit a dead end because that rope is wrapped around that dock. And we got one that was every bit of 12 to 13 feet. We pulled it up alongside the dock, and it was as long as the dock was. And just one of emotionally intense moments, right, that just have a memory sealed to them. I can only imagine what it was like. They caught that from the beach, right? So I can only imagine the fight and getting it up on the shore, what that was like. Pretty cool. Yeah, very cool. Yeah. So Andy, without further ado, I want to be a good steward of your time. Will you please share with us, what is your why?
My why is I want to help people live the lives that they would live if they only knew how. And so my why is wrapped up in the success of other people. I just, there's nothing I would rather do than contribute to that in some way. That is my passion. Everything I do is kind of wrapped around that. Even the things, I mean, my favorite thing is obviously being around my family, but I have that innate why, that deep down desire to help people live not just happy lives, but joyful lives and lives of great purpose and understanding. And that's it for me. Everything that I do, the books that I write, the videos, the reading to kids. I mean, everything is geared toward that. And I have not gotten tired of it.
So this why, is this something that you discovered as an adult? Is this something that came to you when you were a teenager in high school? Share with us if you had a moment where this was something that just, it happened.
Yeah, there have been different iterations of me over the years. And it's been curious to see. There have been, I think, like 4 major shifts, 5 if you consider, going under the pier. But I look back and so much of that, in fact, every little twist and turn seemed to prepare me for what I kind of found I was ultimately supposed to do. Because I can't say that, when I was living under the pier, that I even saw a reason for it for a long time, right? And it was just something to get out of, or something to get away from. And yet I still am gleaning lessons from that time. I mean, it's pretty strange. I think it was The Little Things. I think it's the book, The Little Things, that as I was finishing that book, my wife and I had a conversation about sunrises and sunsets and seeing the sunset. And I had said something like, yeah, they didn't used to be like that. And, when I lived on the pier, or, under the pier, they weren't like that. And Polly gently pointed out to me, yeah, they were, and they were there. You just weren't seeing them at that time, and so it's amazing to me that this many years later, I'm still getting some lessons from that. But then, and I can't say that I had years of working as a comedian. I'm sure that. I toured for 2 years with Joan Rivers and with Kenny Rogers and Shaka Khan and Cher and just tons of people. And I can't say that even then I was like, oh yeah, what I want to do is to help people live the lives they would want. I certainly couldn't have articulated it. I don't even know that I thought about it. But I look back now, and there was a time I went into business, and then there was a time that I went into full bore into the writing and speaking, and so it's like every shift that was made added a layer on there that allowed me to help people in some way. It built a better Andy, I guess. It built a more, what would I say? It built it built me into a person that was more capable of understanding the needs of other people and finding ways to meet those needs. And sometimes those needs, need to be met not only with the truth, but that truth needs to be delivered with humor. And so it's funny to me to look back and see how many different, Andys kind of were involved in doing that, because I also, I understand when somebody talks about money issues and I mean, right now, all my dates have been canceled. And Amazon called yesterday. They aren't stocking any books. They're only stocking, necessities and stuff. And so, am I panicking? Dude, I lived under a pier, I mean, and so, sometimes people come up and they say, oh, I don't have any money, and I don't, and somewhere in the back of my mind, I think, I'm not the person to complain to about this, because sometimes I want to say, do you have an apartment? Do you have I literally, one of my closest friends that I can really, he and I really jab back and forth. And he told me, they've got a son that's just, he's in his mid-20s and he's just kind of figuring things out or whatever. And he told me not too long ago, he said, yeah, he's living in his car. That's what he's doing. He's living in his car. And we talked about it a little bit, and I said, hey, you tell him for me that I said, dude, you have a car? You're lucky. I didn't have a car. You got a car? So it's a lot of perspective.
It is. Isn't it fun to think about the journey that we all take as we go through life, how much looking back in retrospect, those lessons that in the moment, in this situation, you're living sort of in this state of wanting to get out of it. Like you said, you're in this state of frustration of waiting for what's next. And it's so interesting that when you look back on that moment, you can find so many important lessons and awakenings and realizations. So when you are waking up in the morning on a day-to-day basis and you're getting your gears moving, how does this why present itself to you in the morning? Do you have a morning routine that this just hammers it home? Is it something that is just a spark that lights up in the morning without any initiative taken? Kind of share with me how this impacts your day.
It's not a spark that happens without anything going. But over the years, I have become convinced that people, they're as you probably know, William, I've read a ton of biographies. And when you read that many biographies, one of the things you start doing is kind of graphing in your mind, some of the things they have in common. So that's how I came up with the 7 decisions for the Traveler's Gift. But one of the things that is very odd to me is that some of the people who have accomplished more than anything that it seems possible. It just doesn't even seem possible that in one lifetime somebody could do some of the stuff they've done. They got up really early. And I'm not necessarily, my wife says that I'm a morning person, but I'm not really, it's just that by the time she sees me, I'm going. Right. And so she just thinks I'm a morning person. But I, one of the things that I do is I play specific music in the shower. I think that whatever it is that you're hearing, whatever it is that you're reading first, I do my devotion stuff first before if I get into my email or get into, news or anything, I just, it's a different day. And so I have specific music that I play and that focuses me, it heads me in a direction. But that early morning thing, there is something to be said for it. Now, I don't totally understand, but if you look at the life of George Washington Carver, or look at the life of Thomas Jefferson, it's like I dare you to figure out how in the heck could anybody accomplish as much as they accomplished in one lifetime. I don't even get it. It's almost like their time was multiplied. But I also know that I'm really particular about getting up really early when I'm working on a book. And there is something about being in that mode, being in that creative mode and looking at the clock and going, wow, it's only 8:30 in the morning, and, to have been going for 2 or 3 hours and really into it before most people even start anything. And now granted, if you don't go to bed earlier, you can't do that for long, but that early thing is good.
This is true of so many people that I've talked to, just engaging them at a level of, okay, give me an idea what a day looks like, right? So many of the people that I've met and looked up to as mentors are early risers. And in my whole life, I've never been, in fact, I was the other way. I was coming home and getting to sleep maybe in a different iteration of my life when most of these people were waking up. And so it's been an adjustment for me to understand that these are highly productive hours in the day. And it's some people have this, they just call it this magical time right as the sun is rising or just before the sun is rising, where they're able to get such an intense amount of work done.
I want to tell you something right now, where you are with your kids that age, you will be shocked at what you get done before those footsteps start all around you. I mean, my office is down, the office I write in is down below the house, right? And at one point when the boys were like, I don't know, 6 or 7 or 8 or something like that, and maybe a little younger, we came home one night and the babysitter was laughing and she said, I came prepared tonight. I was going to help them. We were going to write a book and staple it and color it and all that. We were going to write a book. And she said, and Austin told us that he already knew how to write a book. And I said, really? How do you do that? And he said, well, what you do is you tell everybody to be real quiet, and then you go downstairs for a while, and then you come up and get some coffee or a Mountain Dew, and you tell everybody, please be real quiet. then you go downstairs for a while, and then you come back up, get some more coffee, and tell everybody to be quiet. And you just kind of do that a while, and that's how you write a book. I thought that's pretty good. That's how it goes.
But the funny part about that is so my office is in the basement as well, and we have hardwood floors upstairs that are now covered by carpet because we have that fall all the time, right? But you hear that pitter patter of feet across the stairs upstairs, and you're like, okay, it's on, right? And if you don't have kids, when that on time goes until you're more exhausted than they are at 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night. And by the time you get them in bed and you get that first sit down moment, to everybody's point who talks about waking up early, you're too tired emotionally, mentally, and physically to do any of that high productivity work at 8:30, 9, 9:30, 10, especially if you have kids. And that's a lesson for me. That time became just sitting on the couch watching TV time because I needed to decompress or whatever rationalization I gave to myself. And when I flipped the script on that and said, okay, I'm tired, they're in bed, let me give myself 15 minutes instead of an hour and a half and get up 30 minutes early. And we started with 15 minutes early, then 30, then 45 minutes. And as you begin to get that stretch in the morning, you start to realize, oh man, I need to get up earlier because I'm not getting all the things done I want to get done in the time that I'm waking up. Yeah, very powerful. So your why is so big in a 30,000 foot view, very unselfish, very relating to other people. How do you get that sense of fulfillment of knowing that your why has been accomplished?
It's an ongoing process, it's an ongoing process. And I don't know that I have, I never have it announced to me, so to speak. I just see little bits of evidence here and there. I see evidence in communications I see people do. I see evidence in the way my boys act. I see, evidence in the letters we get, and evidence in, some small conversations here and there with people. I see evidence in some of the shifts, the changes that I see in teams and some in companies, and sometimes in the growth of companies and in the growth of teams, or in a change in approach of a coach. You just, you're seeing those little things because I know that to effectively coach somebody, they've got to actually want me to be around. And so you can't be around if you make them uncomfortable, or if you're being overbearing, or if you're correcting them all the time. I mean, there has to be, a nonviolent way of creating change. Now, sometimes, that works to my detriment, because sometimes it's so undercover that it's like, when we got married, you and I probably both got the advice, hey, if you can do anything, just make her think it was her idea. Just whatever. If you can just make her think it was her idea, your life will be easier. And so, but when you do that sometimes with a coach or something, it's like, who needs you? I think of this stuff myself, right? It's like,
they don't realize, well, this goes very well in with the quote that I said earlier, which is the planting of the seed, right? You may have planted the seed,
yeah.
but if they think they're responsible for the fruit, they fail to recognize that you're the, how cool. Yeah, I think that's really neat. That's powerful.
But it's one of those things still, you have to figure out ways. If you're going to be effective with people, you have to figure out ways to, to be their friends, or to be, I always think my boys asked me one time, not too long ago, they said, Dad, because they still play my stuff on Sirius XM comedy channels. I mean, it's just hilarious to me that they still do that. I ran into a lady at Lowe's the other day, and I had asked her something, and she said, "Did you say that?" So what? Say that again. So I did, and she said, "Are you Andy Andrews?" And I said, "I am." She said, "Oh my God. Oh my God." She said, "You are my favorite comedian. I just, oh my God." And, I didn't have the heart to tell her I hadn't worked as a comedian in 20 something years, but that's what she thought it was, because she listens on Sirius. Right. But, my boys asked me, they said, "Dad, did you have hecklers, when you were working as a comedian?" And the answer is that I did not. Because I figured out, I watched other comedians, and I figured out why certain comedians were heckled, why certain comedians were heckled a lot, and why a very few comedians weren't heckled at all. And so, I wanted to be the kind of comedian that wasn't heckled at all, that didn't have to deal with that. And so, people, guys heckle comedians that are a threat to them. And so, a comic, that's the ultimate sales job, right? You're up there and you're selling every 15 seconds. Every 15 seconds, you have to make a sale. And you have to make a big sale right at the first. And that sale is for them to decide whether they're going to sit there and let you sell them again and again and again. But I've also noticed that there's never hecklers from the balcony. Hecklers tend to be closer. They tend to be close to the front. And so what I always wanted to be for people is I wanted to be a balcony person. I wanted to be a balcony person. I wanted to, there are people in the balcony, they just cheer. They just give you a standing ovation. They're encouraging. They smile. Nobody's looking at them. And so they're uninhibited about smiling and laughing. And so balcony people can keep us going, even when those hecklers get too close.
No, I think there's something to be said. I think it may have been you who told me this story, that being introduced as the funniest person in America prior to going up on stage, and the negative ramifications that introduction had. Am I right?
Yeah, I actually, I used to do a ton of college concerts. And so 2 years in a row, I was voted by like 1,000 colleges as Comedian of the Year. And one of those years, the second year, I was actually Entertainer of the Year too, which, at the time, it was like one year it was The Police, the next year it was Huey Lewis and the News, the next year was me. And so I had never really had problems with audiences. And then immediately I started having a hard time getting them going. I mean, like immediately, like the very first show I did right after getting that award. And it happened like 2 nights in a row, and I was kind of freaking out. And then the third night, I just happened to listen. I have always tried not to listen to my introductions. even today, even if I'm sitting in the audience and coming up from the audience or whatever, I'll think about something else because I just something unhealthy. It just seems unhealthy to me to sit and listen to somebody say, he's done this, he's done this, he's done this and this, he's done this. And yeah, it just seems unhealthy. So I've always tried not to listen, but that particular night I listened and the guy was saying, this guy just got voted by 1,000 colleges in America as the funniest comedian in America. This guy is the best entertainer in America. He got Entertainer of the Year. And man, I could just feel that audience as he was talking. I could just feel him kind of going, okay, yeah, we'll see. Whereas, hey, here's a guy and, he's from Alabama and here he is, here's Andy. I mean, there was no pressure at all.
No, it's so true that setup, right, is I mean, even goes back to the morning routine of the why, right? The setup for your day, the setup for your introduction, it continues to be so important for everything that we do. So I've never asked this of anyone, and it just kind of occurred to me as we were talking. Do you ever have hesitations in the moment about whether your why can be fulfilled? Do you ever wonder if
you
maybe
certain people or with me?
A combination of both, right? So if you're in the moment with a certain person, I think there's going to be, I mean, it's natural to have hesitations. That's part of the process of working through with somebody, but maybe hesitations that the why maybe needs to be, I guess, as you talked about 5 different iterations of Andy, right? You had to come to a point where there was a why in the crossroad to take a different path, but still be the same Andy as you progressed. Do you ever reach that moment where you're wanting to help people find that path and are just going, wait a minute, what am I doing? Right? Why you have that moment of hesitation?
I have had that moment of hesitation when I sense somebody just doesn't, want to listen, or, I mean, I've been in, if you work with a corporation, the corporation is going to make people come to listen to you. And for the most part, I can, I feel very confident in gathering their attention and making it fun and making them go, oh, gosh, an hour and a half has passed. I didn't even know, but there's, a lot of times there's somebody sitting toward the back and he's sitting there sleeping or he's just not going to listen or rolling his eyes. And so, it's like Jones told me one time, the noticer told me one time, he said, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him think. And so, you can explain, but we've all been in situations, I think, where we have worked with people or tried to help people that we realized we wanted their success for them more than they wanted their own success. And so that is a hill you cannot climb. It at some point, if somebody is just walking away, you can't run them down, not in America.
I think that's a powerful lesson for people to hear, because in the discovery of your why, especially for people who have a why that directly relates to others, that is a service-oriented why where you're trying to help other people, that it isn't the fault of your why that somebody may not be getting the message, or somebody may not be learning or hearing or growing as a result of your working with them, that sometimes your why is working fine and your why is exactly what it's supposed to be. It's just the person, the way the why is interacting with that person may not be right. And it's not an indication of you or your why.
And the one thing that you got to be aware of is you really can't let that person get in the way of you helping the other people. There's been more time wasted, more money lost by trying to make a bad apple into a good one. And I mean, at the grocery store, when they find a bad apple, they don't go, "Hey, bring me several boxes of good ones and let's surround it." I mean, you at some point you have to move on to save the other apples, because after a while, if all the other apples are sitting there going, really, the only reason we're here is so this guy can keep pounding this one guy who's just not gonna listen. I mean, it just defeats everything. And so at some point, but people think, well, we need it. But think about the committees or the meetings or the teams that have revolved everything around this one person, and I've had a coach that has absolutely shown me there is no star that you got to have. I mean, there is not. So, if this is not a team person, if this is not a person who is going to, make us better as a team, we do not need this person.
Yeah, and it's also an indication if your why is that bundle of apples, that one bad apple isn't an indication that all apples are bad. You can't lump everything into that category because you've had one. You can't change who you are or the core of the why that you've established because of one sour apple. Andy, I want to be a good steward of your time. I would love to hear if you have any final thoughts about the why and your journey towards discovering your why before we wrap up.
I firmly believe everybody has one. And I firmly believe it is, it's findable. Okay. Sometimes I talk to people who seem confused about it, but it will be connected in some way to your gifting, into your personality, into your, desires, into what makes you, feel complete, job well done kind of thing that sort of gives you satisfaction, something that you, find yourself interested in that you would do, even if it didn't help you make a living. And maybe, a lot of people, they're making a living so that they can accomplish their why. And so that's cool too. But just know that's my final thought, is just make sure that you understand that whoever you are, you have a place, man. You have a purpose. You have a why. And we need you to accomplish it as much as you need to.
Yeah, this is you hit on one of my, I have a lot of favorite quotes. I apologize. I keep throwing them out there, but Howard Thurman has a great quote that says, don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive. And then go do that, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Yeah. And it sums up exactly what you just said perfectly, right? That we were taught in school and in college and in higher education to go find what somebody needs, right? As opposed to maybe discovering what that one thing is that makes you feel alive. Andy, thank you for your friendship, for your writings, which helped me to get back into the wonderful habit of reading again, and for the books that you've released for my children who will continue to follow after me reading your books. I cannot wait to read. So before we hop off, can you tell us just a little bit about, you have a couple of YouTube videos that you've just done. a book that just got released, and another one coming in September. I want to wrap up with that because these are important. These are things that I've watched, and I want to share them, and I will share them in links when we finish up and share this.
Yeah, I've got another Noticer book coming in September, and if you just put your address in on andyandrews.com, put your email address on andyandrews.com, you'll get you'll receive the podcast, The Professional Noticer. You'll get just notice when a new book is coming out or something like that, and then I have right now, this is the brand new book. It's called How Do You Kill 11 Million People? Why the Truth Matters More Than You Think. And so this is a book that's being re-released that it has the original content, but we added the original book, I think, had 96 pages, and this one has 210. So we've added a lot of material to it. And this was a New York Times bestseller, and it's a book that I wanted to write because I always said I want to write a book that does not say Republican, does not say Democrat, doesn't say liberal, doesn't say conservative, and yet everybody would agree with it. And people go, well, that's kind of nuts. How could you possibly do that? And yet this is it. This is it. And we have actual proof now that that everybody agrees with it, because I've got a picture of President Trump holding this book, and I've got a picture of Anderson Cooper holding this book. So it's like, what do those two guys agree on? Nothing but this book, I guess. But
this book, nice.
So,
and one more video. I would say please share the YouTube video, the name of that you just did about coronavirus. We are all facing this and dealing with this as humanity right now. And the message in your YouTube video was astounding and powerful. What's the title of that, please?
it is. What is the title of that, Matt? It's
Coronavirus, a New Perspective of Truth.
Yeah. It's the coronavirus, a new perspective of truth, or hope in the coronavirus. Or
I think it was the New Perspective of Truth.
the new perspective of truth.
We will look it up. I know it was shared within the Fairway Circuit by our CEO, and the message there is so clear. And I don't want to take away from the message by talking about it here. But again, back to the sincere gratitude I have for your time and for taking the time to answer this question. Your why was truly so powerful, as is your story and your writing. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you, buddy. And it's good talking to you. Good to see you too. So take care, William.